Hello and welcome back to the Man's Kitchen. Today we are on video 4 of our Eat Healthy Kids Fall Cook-Off event. And today we're going to be making a butter squash macaroni and cheese. And I'm going to show you how to do that right after this. And we're back. I want to thank everybody for joining me here today. And if you like this channel, you gotta hit the subscribe button. YouTube makes this a two-part step. You also need to ding the bell icon so that way you get notifications when I post videos. And if you want to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, so you can get more content from the Man's Kitchen. One reason you might want to follow us on Instagram is because I roasted up the squash ahead of time, since the recipe calls for roasted squash. And if you don't know how to peel and cut and roast squash, I made a video for you and it'll be up on Instagram. I'll have a link to my Instagram down below in the description. Now let's get to the rest of the ingredients. Alright, so we have, the recipe here calls for whole grain macaroni. Now I had a bunch of penne in my cupboard, so that's what I cooked. It also calls for some salt. Then we need 2 tablespoons of oil, 4 tablespoons of margarine, 1 grated onion, 4 tablespoons of thyme, 6 tablespoons of whole grain flour or whole wheat flour. Now here's the thing, we're going to be making a roux to thicken the sauce. And a roux is equal parts flour to fat. So if I have 6 tablespoons of flour, I need 6 tablespoons of fat, which is why I have 2 tablespoons of oil and 4 tablespoons of margarine. Now I've got 4 cups of chicken stock, my squash, 2 cups of milk, 3 cups of cheese, and some pepper. And I'm going to show you how to put this all together next. Okay, we have our pot. So we're going to add our 2 tablespoons of oil and our 4 tablespoons of margarine. We're going to give this a little help and stir it up to make sure that we can get this evenly distributed around the pot so it cooks faster. Okay, now that it's almost all melted, it's okay to add our onion and our thyme. We're going to cook this for 1 to 2 minutes, and then I'll show you the next step. Alright, it's been 2 minutes, so now we're going to add our whole wheat flour. So when you cook when you add flour to a pot like this, you're making a roux. Now we can cook our roux for, this recipe says 1 to 2 minutes. Classically though, it should be, and I'm turning the heat down to medium-low. It should be 2 to 3 minutes for a white roux, 3 to 5 minutes for a blonde roux, and 5 to 7 for a brown roux. 5 to 7 minutes for a brown roux. And basically you want to match the color of your roux to your stock. So if you're going to make a beef soup, you would cook this till you have a brown roux. Your blonde roux is a little more versatile. You can get away with using it in a white sauce. It'll tint it a bit in color. With the thyme already has done that. Or you could use a white roux if you're going to use a cream sauce. Since this calls for milk, that's why we're using white roux. If you ever want to get into Cajun or Creole cooking, they take it even further. They cook roux up to half an hour for what's called a red roux. Now when you actually cook flour and make a roux, and you cook it for as long as you would in a red roux, it can actually get dangerous. It gets almost as hot as caramelized sugar. Okay, we have about 40 seconds left on this, and I'll get back to you then. Alright, so now that it's been 2 full minutes, we're going to add our chicken stock. Make a whisk. Mix it all up. Now, really, you should pour it in a little slower than I did, but I still get a little nervous in front of the camera sometimes, and I jump the gun. So really, you should have poured that in a little slower and whisked while you're doing it. But if you did a good job cooking out the roux, you should be able to break up all the lumps by doing this now. Yep, I don't feel any lumps with my whisk, so I don't think it'll matter this time. Now, we're going to turn this from its medium-low heat now up to high, and we're going to bring it to a boil. I'll show you the next step when it boils. Alright, as you can see, we have our boil, so I'm going to turn the heat down. And one thing that we always like to do at the restaurant is, when something first starts to boil, is we like to mix it up and make sure that after you stir it around that it still has its boil. And you can see that it's slowly still starting to boil again in the center. There's some movement there. So we know we have our boiling temperature. Now I'm going to add the squash. I'm going to mix this up. I'm going to let this sit for about 4 or 5 minutes while the squash reheats. Now if you wanted to time this out so you can do it without waiting for the squash to reheat here, I would start making the sauce when the squash still has about 20 minutes left to roast. Now that the squash has some heat in it again, we're going to take our immersion blender and we're going to blend it all up. Alright, so now we're going to stir in the milk. And it's gotten a lot thicker now that we've blended it in, that squash. Now we can stir in the cheese, and I'm going to switch to, well, I'll keep using the whisk. Whoa! There goes a lot of that cheese. Let's keep going. Okay, now all that's left to do is to add the pasta. So I'm going to go get that. I'm going to mix this in. And then we're going to transfer this to our roasting pan. Okay, now that we have this into our baking pan, and I did spray it down with some spray first because it calls for the pan to be greased, we're going to put this into our oven at 350 degrees for 1/2 of an hour, or until it gets bubbly. And I'll pull it out of the oven then and show you what happens. Alright everybody, it's been 1/2 an hour, and I made myself this delicious looking bowl out of this big pan. Now let's see if it actually does taste as good as it looks and smells. Okay, the first year of my marriage, I made my wife cook me mac and cheese, Kraft Blue Box, every Sunday. It became our tradition. I was infatuated with that stuff as a kid, and I always loved it. I still love it to this day, even though there's much better products out there. Homemade mac and cheeses, like this one. If I knew about this 6 years ago, she would have killed me, because I would have had her make me this every Sunday for a whole year. This is redonkulous. It's amazing. And thank you for coming out to the Man's Kitchen this week. If you like this channel, please hit the subscribe button. Make it a two-part process. YouTube makes it a little hard on us. You have to ding the bell icon too. Hit the like button for this video, and leave me a comment below after you've made this. Tell me what you think about it. Do you think that the squash is well balanced with the cheese? I do. Do you think that the pasta gets a little bit of a crisp on it? Goes well with the sauce? Well, I think that too. So you have yourself a great day, and I'll see you next week.